everybody, panel members and candidates. This is a continuation of the Veterans in Politics International Endorsement interviews. We're now proceeding with the U.S. Senate candidate interviews. Before we begin with that, however, we have a representative from Shelley Berkley's office, and she's going to make a 1-minute statement, and then we'll proceed with the rest of the proceedings. You need a microphone.
Oh, yes. Sure,
Thank you.
Thank you all, and thank you for being here. Congresswoman Shelley Berkley sends her best wishes to veterans in politics and commends you for your outstanding work on behalf of all veterans. She greatly appreciates working with members of VIP over the years. When Shelley decided to run for Congress as the daughter of a World War II Navy veteran, she recognized that Nevada's large and growing veteran population was underserved. She sat down with Nevada veterans and heard firsthand the challenges facing them. She became committed to making their cause her highest priority. And that is what this election is all about, priorities. Who will fight for Nevada veterans and who will put them first? In her first term in Congress, Shelley secured a seat on the Veterans Affairs Committee. From that position, she pursued her top goal for Nevada veterans, a full-service veteran affairs medical complex, including a surgical hospital, outpatient clinic, nursing home, and primary care clinics across the valley. Shelley tenaciously reached out to the highest officials in the Veterans Administration to press her case that there was a critical need for complete VA services in Nevada. She brought the Secretary of the VA and numerous other officials to Las Vegas so they could hear directly from the needs of veterans. She played a key role in getting the land transfer and the funding for this complex, which will begin serving veterans in the summer. She has also co-authored legislation to increase the use of telemedicine in Nevada's veterans. And I apologize, I went a little bit over, but if I could just indulge you just for 1 second and say that Nevada's veterans have been Shelley Berkley's top priority in Congress, and they will be her top priority in the United States Senate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, here's how the rules work. You each get 1 minute to introduce yourselves, and the panel members will ask questions. You'll have 1 minute to respond, 30 seconds to respond to any follow-up questions. We'll get as far as we can. Any questions? All right, let's begin. You want to start down here on the left?
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
I'm Dave. Got a mic here. I'm David.
Try the button.
There we go. Got it now. Okay, David Lory VanderBeek. I am the candidate from the Independent American Party of Nevada. Just a little bit about myself. I actually was born in California, but I grew up in Idaho, and then my family helped settle Nevada and Lincoln County. So living here, I graduated from high school here at Lincoln County. That's over in Poliak, if you're familiar with that at all. My children are 7th generation Nevadans now. So we live out in Pahrump. We have 5 kids, Amy and I. And I got a bachelor's in philosophy. My master's is in marriage and family therapy. I'm working on my PhD. I'm a counselor here in Las Vegas and out in Pahrump. We live out in Pahrump because we wanted a little bit more rural space to raise our children. I would consider myself oriented to the Constitution. I like a lot of what Ron Paul has to say, and so I'll just leave you with that.
My name is Carlo, Poliak, Republican. I come from an academic era, and I continue education in the School of Hard Knocks. I am a Vietnam era veteran, 5 years, naturalized citizen, and I feel that I'm a constitutionalist, and I've come to this realization that lawyers, rich and famous, do not excel in judgment capacity. We, everyday folks, make crucial decisions daily. They got to rely on a plumber, electrician, auto mechanic, just like you and I. And I'm very capable in working, and if I have to be in a representative position, because I have people to draw from for counsel. Incidentally, I want to make George W. Wallace a liar. And it's for that particular reason that I switched from the Democrat to the Republican Party.
Edward Hamilton. I live in Henderson. My ballot name is Eddie in Liberty Hamilton. I had a fight with the Secretary of State, but that ballot name is not approved. I'm gonna give you a deal you can't refuse. I'm gonna work for you for $1 until the economy gets better, the employment gets better. And I'm the only candidate. I'm a Republican, and I seek, I want your endorsement because I'm gonna beat Heller. Believe it or not, only 70,000 Republicans will come to the polls in June. And I am a Ron Paul delegate, and we've registered 50,000 Ron Paul supporters. And we're, mobilizing all of them to come to the poll. I can win with 30,000 votes, win the nomination. So I want your support. Like I said, I'm the only candidate that has a plan, a job. I can bring 5 million new visitors to Las Vegas. And that will be through the Constitution, the 26th Amendment, making the age 18 the true age of majority. They can go clubbing, they can drink, they can go gambling, and we'll bring $300 million in revenue every year. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Barry Ellsworth. I was born in Utah, a little town west of Salt Lake City. My aunts always lived here. If you go to my website, you'll see me winning the 2 largest races, horse races. I'm the one sitting on top of the horses in an Elko. And then I grew 6.5 inches and started waiting tables at Love's Woodpit Barbecue. I went to BYU, I graduated, went to law school for a little while, didn't like it, came back and became a stockbroker. I've been in business and finance ever since that time. In 2004, an example of what I've done, I started a company called Green Plains Renewable Energy. It's now the 4th largest ethanol producer in the world. It will do about $3.8 billion in sales this year, employ 640 people plus. I raised the $190 million for that, mostly by myself. I wrote the registration statement, submitted to the Securities and Exchange Commission, which saved tens of millions of dollars in professional fees. I understand securities laws as well as anyone I know. That's part of the reason I'm running, because when I saw what Shelley Berkley and the rest of Congress did to cause this economic mess by voting for Graham Leach-Bliley, which created the 2 big-to-fail banks, then the Commodities Futures Modernization Act, which allowed Wall Street to operate in a fully unregulated environment since the Great Depression the first time. Only idiots would do that. I want these people out of office. I want people that are capable and I want them to stop destroying the Constitution. Thank you.
I'm Steve Brown. I'm a business owner. I've been a contractor since 1986. I was in the military. I was in the Army from 1974 to 77 in a nuclear missile outfit. Then I got out for 10 years and went back to the reserves for 3 more. And the reason I'm running is because this country is going bankrupt. There's an ugly number that nobody wants to talk about. It's in the Congressional Budget Office's website. You can see it. It's by the year 2017, 12.5% of all government expenditures are going to be for interest on the national debt. That's over $500 billion a year. So I actually have a plan to balance the budget. Just put everything right on the table. There's some pretty bad choices we have to make. But entitlement spending, military, all that's going to get cut, and that's for sure. It's a mathematical certainty. So I would never ask a young person to take a bad deal that I wouldn't take myself. And if that retirement age is going to get pushed back, which it will, then I think I should have to have mine pushed back right along with everybody else's. And basically, I just came out and told the truth on my website, and that's it.
We're going to start the questioning with Rob Lauer.
Everyone keeps coming up here and saying they're experts in the Constitution, so we're going to test you today. I want you all to answer the question and tell me what you think the War Powers Act is and whether it's constitutional and why. Go ahead, Dave. The War Powers Act.
Yeah. What I understand is that as far as the War Powers Act is that Congress has the authority to declare a war, and that the President of the United States can engage in military operations for a limited amount of time without congressional approval. I don't know the exact time frame. I don't know if it's something like 6 months or 180 days, something like that. So if I'm understanding it correctly, I know that the Congress did never formally declare a war for Iraq or for Afghanistan or for ongoing operations. And I guess my concern would be that that Congress have the power to control military operations. For example, we recently had, we have operations in Libya, and I would say that that's unconstitutional, but we have a president right now that feels that it's okay for the Army to be engaged in war per the authority of the United Nations or other organizations other than Congress, and that was one of the recent hearings anyway.
Is it constitutional, the War Powers Act, in your opinion?
Was what constitutional?
The War Powers Act.
Well, if I would say yes, based on what I understand.
You know, I'm rather astounded that you're not interested in why my concern is for being involved. So I'm going to volunteer, first of all. Contrary to Acts 5:38-39, I'm a fighter against God. And my theme is pertinent and endearing to everyday folks, and that's the assurance and preservation of the Social Security net, safety net, and at age 60 as in France. As it is, no one has questions the aristocrats, how come you don't have restrictions on your retirement? And in order to defeat the enemy, I like the Israelis' example, and they have to infiltrate it. And the only way that you're going to assure constitutionality, budgetary, is everyday folk like myself has to set the example and infiltrate the system. And on the other, and I will just maintain that. That's my whole sole goal. Any other incidentals distracts from my theme.
Okay, thank you. Let's go back in history. The War Powers Act came about because of the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. Remember that in Vietnam, when Lyndon Johnson faked the war, faked an attack, and then we had to come in with a War Powers Act to authorize Congress. To me, it is unconstitutional, but it was never challenged. Okay, and only the Congress can declare war. So as your senator, I will not commit any American troops without a declaration of war and without paying for it. So in a way, if any politicians in the future, politicians promoting wars, they should be required to serve in the front line. Every single news media, pundit, politicians, they want wars, they join our troops in the front line. Because I'm against war again on behalf of Israel. Israel is a very strong country. Israel has 100 to 200 nuclear weapons. She's got nuclear submarines off the coast of Iran. They're not under any threat. Shelley Berkley is pushing for wars, but I'm against it. I'm going to prevent wars. War Powers Act is unconstitutional because of the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. Thank you.
Never read it, not familiar. I've heard of it. I'm not going to comment on it because I've never read it. For what it's worth, I went through BYU in 2 years and 4 months and graduated magna cum laude, so I bet if I read it, I'd understand it really quickly. I don't want to comment on something I don't know anything about.
Yeah, it is my understanding that only Congress can declare war. Now, we've gotten our endless war in the Middle East, and we've also got the war on drugs. We've got all these different wars going on. But about that war on drugs, I hope I get a chance to talk about that. We got the highest prison rate in the world, either through actual numbers or per capita. As a matter of fact, we got 7 times as many people in prison per capita as China. We got over twice as many people in prison as Iran. And that's not to mention, I've been against this Iraq war from the start. I don't like that. I don't like the war in Afghanistan. We need to get out of there. It's just the Soviet Union tried it and it didn't work for them, and now we're trying to basically the same plan they had. It's not working, and we're going to bankrupt ourselves with the process.
Thank you. Sorry I didn't give you a warning.
It's okay.
All right. All right. Did everyone get a chance to answer that question? I think so.
Teresa, or you?
All right. Well, let's move on to. Let's see, Karen, did you have any questions?
I'll pass mine.
Why don't we jump over here to, we haven't heard from Jim in a while. Let's start with Jim Jonas then.
It's all right, I'm happy to wait.
All right, my first question specifically for you, Mr. Hamilton. How many times exactly have you ran for office?
As many as the the founding fathers want me to. The founding fathers.
No, I just asked you how many times. I'm not attacking you for it. I just asked you how many times.
I'm going to answer it my own way. Many times, because I'm obligated by the founding fathers to run for public office. If citizens don't run, eventually politicians will stay there for life. So we have to do that. It's an obligation, and everybody should take the plunge. This country is going communist. This country is going socialist this November. Did you know that you all will be slaves to communism?
Okay,
So that's what we all got to run for.
Okay, you only got
Thank
about
you.
30 seconds, so let me ask you a follow-up. What are you gonna do differently to make sure you win this time, so
Okay.
you can do all the things?
Thank you very
want to do?
much. Like I said, I'm going to beat Heller in the primary because I am with the Ron Paul camp. We've organized 50,000 voters. These are fanatic voters. They will come out and vote. Only 75,000 people will come out. So we're beating the Bushes and getting everybody out. And like I said, my name will be listed as Eddie in Liberty Hamilton. Everybody knows what in Liberty is. This is Ron Paul. So I'm going to win this particular primary. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, my next question is for, and forgive me if I mispronounce your last name. Your last name is Poliak?
Poliak, correct.
Is that how?
Poliak,
Okay.
Poliak, whatever sounds
Okay,
good.
okay, Mr. Poliak, my question to you is, before you came here today, did you look at who the panel members were gonna be? And no, the reason why specifically is because it lists what our professions are or whatever. So if you know certain panel members or lawyers, I probably wouldn't insult the law profession. Can you respond to that, please?
First of all, it's my prerogative to make criticism towards any profession. And I wasn't being derogatory, I was just being candid, because I realize this much. To tell the truth in a time of universal deceit is a revolutionary act. The Apostle Paul told the truth. He was persecuted. All right, I just told the truth, and I don't mind telling them. I can handle my discourse as good as any. I didn't go to college for anything. My mother didn't stress academics for no reason at all, and I have benefited from it. I'm every bit as capable, and I know exactly that I'm going to rely on people that matter of fact, I would include them to assist me should I be, 1 John 5:19, consent to my being a winner.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Brown, what exactly is it that Dean Heller is doing badly? Why do you want to defeat him?
Well, he has no plan to balance the budget. When you look at their websites, and it's not just Dean Heller, you can go right down the list, and they talk about, we have to.
Yeah, just.
Yeah, there's one little detail I forgot. I got a good memory, but it's short. Okay, if you look at all these websites,
Hey,
they
can you
talk
turn it
about
on?
everything that's wrong. That's too late.
We're just on first pass.
Thanks.
It's the last group of the day.
Well, anyway, they talk about everything that's wrong and what we need, but nobody ever lays out a plan. You know, they got this, like, well, I won't name it, you can just go down the list of Republicans and Democrats. But you have to come out, I think we got to come out right before the election and tell us, I got a good memory, but it's short. What was the question?
Why are you running against Dean Heller? What
Yeah,
is
because he has
doing wrong?
absolutely no plan to balance the budget. I got one. Now, there's some pretty bad choices you have to make. But if we don't make them now, it's a mathematical certainty that this is gonna happen. Your retirement age is, you look like a young man, your retirement age is gonna go up. But I would never tell you, you've gotta take a bad deal that I wouldn't take myself. So if yours is gonna go up, then mine's gotta go up right along with it. Thank you.
Thank you. And for the other two, I just got one question that both of you can answer. Probably start here with Mr. Ellsworth. What are you going to do, since Mr. Ellsworth, you said you didn't know exactly what the War Powers Act was. What would you do specifically to make sure that the president is held accountable for not sending troops or not committing troops for more than 30 days without a declaration of war by Congress?
Every situation's different, okay? And I think the founding fathers gave the executive the right to act as an executive, and some decisions need to be made quickly. I don't think the president should be able to go in and do an illegal war like Bush did. He took us into There was an Iraq resolution that Shelley Berkley voted for. A completely illegal war based on false premises to steal oil. They lied to us. Now you've got a president signing the NDAA that says in the signing statement that he's signing it with serious reservations, but that his administration won't interpret it as giving him the authority to arrest and hold American citizens without trial, and he relies on parts of that in the Wars Power Act. I just haven't read the bill, so I can't comment on it.
Okay, thank you.
So the same question?
Yeah, the same question.
Yeah, that's really simple. Congress has the power of the purse, so you have to unfund military operations, and so Congress has to do that. If Congress doesn't do that, then they're always implicitly agreeing with whatever the president's agenda is. It doesn't matter what they say to you. It matters where they put their money. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing they can do is they can, which some congressmen have moved for, articles of impeachment. If a president is determined to carry out the slaughter of other people without the support of the people and to commit troops that way, then the Congress can impeach him. So those are two real simple things that a Congress can do. Okay.
All right, I'm going to exercise moderator privilege here and ask a quick question of my own. Is this something that I know some people are interested in? And actually, it's going to be directed initially to Mr. Hamilton, but I want everyone to comment on it very briefly. Mr. Hamilton, some of us know that you have changed your party affiliation a couple times, and you do give a good talk that you're a constitutional, limited government conservative. I want to see a show of hands on who has changed their party affiliation any time in their life, and then if you have changed your party affiliation, I would like to know how we can be assured that you are indeed a true constitutional, limited government conservative, and let's try to limit this. Just
Okay,
well, and if you're not conservative,
whatever
if you've ever changed your party affiliation, then how do we know that you're true to the values that you deem important? And let's
since you
begin
brought
with
up my
Mr.
name, you
Mr.
recall
Hamilton
that
first.
yeah, I joined.
You want us to raise our hands first?
Well, first raise your hand if you've ever changed your party affiliation. I'd like to see that. Okay, then why don't we begin with Mr. Hamilton? And if you can answer very quickly, because I don't know if I should have taken someone else's time, but please.
You know, I originally ran as a Republican 2 years ago, but then there was about 9 people running, so that's enough for a baseball team. So I decided to switch and fight Harry Reid in his own backyard. That's why I switched the party, so I can infiltrate and beat Harry Reid. That's why I switched to the Democrat instead of waiting until November. So that's why I did that, and I got clobbered over there. It was a suicide mission, but it was like, Jesus Christ, I volunteered to die for you guys.
All right, thank you. Can we go to Mr. Poliak? Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I was at one time a Democrat based on the premises that it represented the working person. As time went on, I realized that this was pure deceit. So I said, I'm going to switch over to the Republican Party, and I'm going to prove George W. Wallace a liar, where he states there ain't a dime difference. I would really have, and I have addressed this with James Hoffa, all the way down to the local labor board, that we need to imitate Europe and Israel and offer a third palatable party, a labor party. Now, I pledge allegiance to no particular one because I want to give the people something they've never experienced before, and that's representation. I believe in Matthew 22:39. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. And that's my credence.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I grew up in a Republican family in Idaho, as I said, and then I switched my own affiliation, not because of anybody in my family. I just went and found what the constitutional party was in the state of Nevada. The national affiliate is the Independent American Party of Nevada. So I made that switch. I'm not a Republican and I'm not a Democrat. in some ways, I would be considered a liberal. For example, I believe in raw food, I believe in organic food, I believe people ought to be able to use medical marijuana. So in some regards, I would be considered a liberal. In other ways, I would consider myself a conservative fiscally or something, as far as monetary or the conservative in the use of police powers. But anyway, hopefully that helps a little bit.
Thank you. Mr. Ellsworth.
Yeah, I've always been Democrat, except for, 5 years of my life, I switched, I think, to an independent. And then when Howard Dean got me excited, I called them and said I'd raise some money for him and raised with another group here, $276,000 for him one night. And when I did that, I went back to being a Democrat. But I've always leaned more to democratic principles. For example, I don't think anyone has the right to tell a woman what she can or cannot do with her own body, and you can't be a Republican and feel that way very well.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you can have a chance to also address the question, even though you haven't changed.
No, I haven't changed, but many years ago, I was such a liberal Democrat, a friend of mine joked that I was almost a communist, but then I started my own business. And my attitude changed real quick about tax laws. I do my own accounting, I understand that, and the role of government should be much less than what I originally thought. And I'm against a lot of things. I'm against the Patriot Act, NDAA. Patriot Act is just a horrible bill. Real quick, this is why I'm against it. It started with a permit to build a house, then a permit to put a room in this giant house, then a permit to put a patio roof over the back of your house, then a permit to put a deck behind your house, then a permit to change the front door in your house.
And put a fence around your house.
And now a permit just to change the water heater inside your house. Now what if they do the same thing with the Patriot Act? The Nevada sales tax started at 2%. It's up over 8%. They never know when to stop. They just keep coming and coming. They've done that with the Patriot Act already. Want to time?
5 seconds, that one.
Okay, but look how they do with the Patriot Act. NDAA, the Supreme Court last May, 16th May, ruled that the police have the right to kick your door in without a warrant. And they just keep coming.
Thank you, sir. Thank you all. Okay, where are we?
Teresa.
Ellie Howard.
I think we should let Teresa go.
Okay.
Teresa hasn't asked a question yet.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right, thank you very kindly, I appreciate that. Well, I got a lot of questions here, so how about I turn it over?
She's been typing away the whole time.
Hi, good afternoon, my name is Teresa Price, I'm U.S. Air Force Major, retired 21 years, 5 years in combat. I would like to ask you, Mr. Hamilton, with regards to your statement that you had given once previously that you would work for $1 per year unless and until the economy and job statistics improve, and that you believe all senators and congressmen in the meantime should take a pay cut now. Well, I must applaud you on that, but I would like to ask you how exactly you plan to do that.
Okay, like I said, I'll take $1 until the employment gets better, and I'm referring to Nevada because I'm going to be a senator from Nevada. I have a plan to bring 5 million new people here by making the age down to 18 like it used to be in 1971. Now I'm old enough to remember I went to the bars in my earlier years. So we'll bring 5 million more young people here. They can go clubbing here. People fought in the war at the age of 18. They came back. They can't go in the casino. Okay, they have to be given their right. So we got 5 million people coming here every year, additional. That will create $300 million in sales tax, room tax revenues for the state. $1 billion with the Biden budget is going to improve the economy because young people now can work in the casino. Currently, they cannot work inside the casino where there's alcohol. So that's my plan. That way, when things get better, I can get paid. Okay? In the meantime, I'll take $1. When things get better in Nevada, I can bring the unemployment to 5%. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. My next question would be for Mr. Ellsworth. I would like to ask you with regards to your background in business and specifically with regards to your alternative energy business. What are your thoughts on the criticism that we hear widely in the media for spending a few $1 million worth of taxpayers' money on alternative energy research and development, while there seems to be little, if any, outrage over the oil subsidies, which on average cost the American taxpayer $254 a month over the last century? How do you feel about that?
we have all kinds of energy problems. I was on Dylan Radigan's show and some kid asked me about the mandates in ethanol. And I was just, because he's sitting there saying what he's saying was completely untrue. The Ghawar field in Saudi Arabia is the largest oil field in the world. It's 170 miles long. It's 61 years old. When that field starts to fall, 25% of the, and I think it's already started to fall. A few weeks ago, they reported they were 237,000 barrels less a day in production. No, I think it's falling. We're going to be in a world of hurt because no one has addressed our reliance on oil. If I had the power to do it, I would have high-speed rail over the complete interstate highway system, because if you don't plan to do this before, when it hits you, if they shut down the Straits of Hormuz in a week, I'll promise you there's no food on the shelves in the stores in the major cities in the United States, because we haven't planned for any of this. So it's very important that we address our energy issues, and oil companies shouldn't be getting the subsidies. But they're bought and paid for, so Congress keeps giving it to them.
Absolutely, just like a sack of potatoes. Thank you very much, Mr. Ellsworth. My question for Mr. Poliak, with regards to Mr. Ellsworth's statements on our dependence on oil, our failure to plan for when that resource is no longer available to us, and specifically with regards to the subject of peak oil, which most scientists indicate we've hit in the year 2007. How do you plan to carry on with this no more war sort of stance when it comes to our fueling our economy, which is dependent on fossil fuels?
One insight our congressionals lack, and I learned this from my experience as rendering Harry Reid as a lawyer, is they lack wisdom. Wisdom, being able to foresee the consequence of one's action. Now, the gentleman here mentioned that Saudi Arabia is not producing as much oil. We have here a vascular vein, a jugular vein, it's big. So when you penetrate it, you're going to really siphon out a lot of blood. Well, I look at the oil within the earth like a vascular system of the body. So we're relying on all these countries, and they're pumping, and so one day they're going to say, hey, wait a minute, we ran to a dry well, no problem, we got reserves. We go there to our reserve, and suddenly our capillaries are no oil there. It's very important that we apply wisdom and prepare, because oil is not replenishable like H2O. And actions needs to be taken. We need to get out all these phony balonies that cannot endear to issues of everyday folks, as myself and the other panelists can.
Thank you, sir. My next question is for Mr. VanderBeek. Please, sir. With regards to your positions on the militarization of local law enforcement, I have a question for you that basically you can sum it up by saying, what will you do about Metro? Las Vegas Valley Police have been involved in 378 shootings since 1990. 142 of them are fatal. Metro alone was responsible for 310 shootings and 115 deaths. That's nearly 18 shootings per year in the Las Vegas Valley alone, 21 years running. This is obviously a misuse of force, and the police are obliged to do this, or rather they feel free to do this because of the Ninth Circuit's history of upholding qualified immunity. I would like to know what you would do about the NAACP and the ACLU of Nevada's recommendations that they sent through the Department of Justice in DC to the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, in short, stating that when assessing the need to use force and the type and degree of force to use, members should consider the nature and extent of any threat posed by the subject, as well as any other circumstances of the encounter. And specifically, sir, I'm referring to the veteran status of one's circumstances.
Well, it's a really complex issue, because on the one hand, you've got to be concerned about, police officers, hopefully they understand that they're citizens and that they have families too in the community. One thing that I think is really valuable about if you look at constitutional authority for law enforcement, it should be as local as possible. I think you mentioned the idea of federalization of police forces. I don't, maybe that's something that's been on my mind is the influence of federal forces or police forces in a local law enforcement. I think it's really important that not only we be tried by our peers, but we be policed by our peers. So that I would want to communicate. I mean, we can't alienate police forces. So we have to really be careful how we address it, because we have to communicate with these people. We want the police to feel comfortable and feel like we're going to work with them. I understand if somebody is engaging in police brutality, it has to be publicized. We have to talk about it. We have to bring it up. We have to keep exploring it. We can't go down this path where like in Austin. In Austin, they had a police death and they shut down the highways. They shut them down on both sides. It shut down the city for about 5 hours. It's not appropriate. I mean, it's kind of this police worship I don't support.
Thank you very much, sir. And my last question for you, Mr. Brown, please, is the New York Times in October last year quoted you as being in favor of reducing our military spending, and approximately $475 billion is what you propose the military budget should be. You were quoted as saying that the size of our military will be reduced, but no troops will be fired or let go. Reduction in troop numbers can be accomplished slowly through retirements and reduction in recruiting. You went on to talk about the numbers of troops that we have in different countries and the numbers of our nukes, and specifically with regards to Nevada, as this has historically been a nuclear sort of, they have a lot of background with nukes. You indicate that 2,500 nukes are still deployed and 2,600 more are as backup. The Obama administration, in an attempt to mollify Republicans, has committed to modernization of an already expensive and expansive complex of nuclear labs. You don't believe that we need to maintain this arsenal, especially when Congress is considering deep cuts in vital domestic programs. Could you expand more on that, please, sir?
See, I was in a nuclear missile unit in Germany. This is in the mid-70s. Now, it made sense then, because the Soviet Union had about 40,000 pointed at us, and we had an equal number pointed back. But why are we spending all this? Why do we need so many now? Just 3 of them. These are mid.
Is that you?
Is that a nuclear attack?
Must be a nuclear feedback. I guess we're gonna start you over.
Dive!
Is there a bunker in here?
Sorry. Yeah,
Talk very slowly.
go ahead.
Okay, well, we have 3 for our platoon. Now, one of them could have flattened Phoenix, 1 Salt Lake City, and 1 Las Vegas. Now, we got what, 1,500? I mean, how many do we need? I mean, how many times are we going to blow up the world? You know, all we need is just, and this is insane to be spending this much money. Those 1970s models we have, I'm sure they still work, don't they? I mean, what could possibly go wrong with a nuclear warhead? And if we still got them, if we still got them from back then, why don't we just, the missile itself is gone. It was a Pershing missile. Ronald Reagan very wisely eliminated them back in the 1980s in one of the treaties he signed with Mikhail Gorbachev. But the missile is still there. The launching device is gone, but the missiles should still be there, the warhead. So why on earth would we want to spend, $86 billion? When we're talking about, we're trying to put together enough money for veterans' health care and all these other programs, and we want to spend this much money on nuclear
I think it was
warheads?
$600 billion over the next 10 years.
Yeah. Well, why on earth would we want to keep spending? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to
Time's
me.
up.
If we had those warheads.
Because we spend that much every year for oil subsidies.
Yeah, but the warheads.
Time's up.
Yeah, I guess that wasn't a follow-up question, just a follow-up statement. So, okay, did everyone get a chance to speak this last round in response to your question?
Our time's
No,
up.
we're done.
Yeah.
All right,
We're
so
done.
do we don't, the panel's consensus is we don't have time for another question?
No.
We're done.
All right, well then let's thank our final candidates.